to infinity and beyond.
Hello everyone, Roger and James here from the DisKingdom podcast. In this episode, we are going to be talking all about the big sort of news that came out of Electronic Arts this week. They're going to be closing down their studio, which I'm now going to probably absolutely butcher. Visceral. How do I pronounce it? I sounded more like Snoop Dogg there. How do I?
Visceral.
Yes. Whatever the company is, I can't pronounce it. I was trying to pronounce it 4 times before we recorded it. But yeah, they're going to be closing it down. Now, unfortunately, why this affects sort of us as Disney and Star Wars fans, they are creating a Star Wars video game that was set to come out in 2019. It was going to be created by, I think it's Amy Hennig, who was behind the Uncharted series, which are an epic video game. Fantastic game. Well, a lot of people have been excited about this game because they're basically thinking it's going to be Uncharted with Star Wars, and we all want a single-player campaign. We all want this strong thing. And then EA then go and kind of give us a little bit of a thing of not only are they laying everyone off, or they're not really technically laying everyone off, they're going to try and move people over to different areas. But they then came out and kind of, this was the one that kind of got me, was talking about they want to make it like get people to keep coming back to the game, and obviously this kind of falls into EA's mantra of basically turning all games into live services, which basically means microtransactions, loot boxes, long life, because they don't want us to buy a game and move on after we complete it. They've basically said that they're gonna just try and move things along. They want to just looking here, all the other teams are going to be taking over of that game, but they want to be just kind of moving things around a little bit, which I thought was a bit odd. What did you think?
Honestly, I'm very disappointed by the news because I definitely want a proper single-player experience from a Star Wars game. I mean, I skipped over the first Battlefront entirely because it didn't have one. I'm super excited for Battlefront 2 because of its single-player, but I'm only expecting to get, 6 or 7 hours out of it at the most. So something like this, which could potentially have been a 12 to 15-hour game, I'm sad at its loss. Obviously, we don't know what form it's going to take following this. We do know, as you mentioned, that they want to do it as a gaming as a service. But I really, while I have no problem with gaming as service in general, like I'm loving Shadow of War right now, which follows the same kind of mantra. It's got the loot boxes and everything. I don't want it in every game. I want there have to be games that I am done with this game. There's nothing left for me to do in this game. It's safe for me to put this down and maybe come back to it some other time and play through it again. But nothing from the developer side going, well, if you're not logging in, then you're missing out on blankety blank blank blank. I mean, heck, even Final Fantasy 15 became something of a gaming as a service, and because they've been having events in that. Not that I've played them, but I've been reading about them, and it's just like, not every game needs to have this.
No. It definitely feels like these big publishers are looking at, they're looking at the bottom line of how much money these games, of how much things, what people are willing to buy and stuff, and realizing, we've talked about it on numerous occasions on our gaming podcast, where we've been talking about, companies needing more money, prices actually hasn't gone up in 30 years, the same core cost is the same as it was then, so they are looking at these ones to get you people to upgrade. Now, they've tried season passes. EA are probably one of the more hard-nosed ones where they want to make sure that they are really kind of hitting it for money. There's been a couple of big games that have not done as well as they wanted. Mass Effect recently. There's been Mirror's Edge. That was another. All their single-player stuff has not been performing very well. But also they've got a very bad history of buying up companies. A game doesn't do very well, and they just can it and move on, cannibalize what they can and move along to the next one. There's not a lot of forgiveness, and a lot of people are worried about the concept of a AAA single-player experience is getting harder and harder for them to make money. Because I personally, they're the bubble. I mean, there were so many, and then they've started realizing that. I think players are being a bit selective. This year has been a massive year for games, and I think that's the problem.
And it's not even just been a massive year for games. It's been a massive year for single-player games as well. You know, you've got Breath of the Wild over on the Switch, Mario Odyssey coming out later this year. Pretty much several games on the PlayStation 4, like
I think Persona 5.
Yeah, all sorts of games. And the thing is, while many of them have been critically acclaimed, I'm sure they've done perfectly well at the stores. One thing that you get when you're making a single-player game is you get people going, well, this single-player experience will be the same whether I buy it now or whether I buy it a year from now. So my choices are I can get Mario Odyssey or Battlefront 2. Mario Odyssey will be just the same as it is right now in the future, whereas if I do not get Battlefront 2 now, I will be behind the curve on the multiplayer aspect, assuming that's what you're buying it for. And
this is kind of thing like you're saying there, right, with being behind on the multiplayer, and it kind of just, you know, like you say, there's so many stuff out, and if you're online multiplayer, you don't want to have these issues of being behind. And I don't know, I just feel like this company here, I mean, EA, obviously, we don't know what's going on behind the thing. Maybe it was behind schedule, maybe they were looking at the numbers and going, this game is not going to deliver what we want. It was going to be if it was going to be a Star Wars single player experience, it was going to deliver. It was probably the safest franchise for gaming to make money. They could have put, you know, they could basically put Star Wars logo on, you know, the worst game ever, and it would still sell better than probably half the things on the list.
I mean, I don't know how well it sold, but you've got like that Star Wars fighting game from back in the PlayStation 1 era. People remember that game, even though the PlayStation was glutted with games, and you know they don't remember it well, but they do remember it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think it was a bit of a shock to see this come out, because I think EA, you know, we've all felt like EA have been kind of quite headstrong on this kind of their path, and they've been, you know, they've had this, you know, they've had Amy out on Star Wars Celebration Eve about 4 or 5 different events in the past year, talking about it, showing off some footage, showing off some gameplay, or showing off concept art, and then suddenly for it just to be like, right, the game now is being developed by somewhere else. They don't know what's going on with, you know, they haven't said what's going to be happening to her. Is she off the project? You know, is she just going to be moved over to another department where they just do the single player? Right, okay, we're going to cut it in half. You do this, and we're going to then, maybe it's an open world MMO or something like, I don't know. Or are they just going, right, now your budget is cut in half, you just need to wrap this, we just need to wrap it. The fact they've moved it on to other companies and they're rejigging it and they want to rechange the release date from 2019 says this is quite big.
Yeah, honestly, we hadn't had much information about this to begin with, so we have no point of comparison between what it is now versus what it could have been versus what it will be. But honestly, I hope they keep her on the project, move her over to whatever team is going to be working on it. I hope they keep most of the people in the studio, because there are a lot of people working in that studio, and they've said that they want to move them all to, you know, other places that are appropriate. They don't want to just fire the whole group, which obviously we want to encourage, because we don't want people to lose jobs over this. But yeah, what we're going to get versus what we were going to get, we'll have no way of knowing unless she decides to speak out at some point. But given how her career is still, you know, at the middle point probably, so she doesn't want to burn any bridges. So I mean, she's been in the business for a very long time. She was working on like the Legacy of Kain titles, so I mean, she's not new. She's certainly established enough that if she did burn bridges with the EA, she could be picked up somewhere else. But you know, don't burn bridges you don't have to. No. So I suspect we'll never find out exactly what the reasoning behind this is, what we lost as a result of this. All we can hope is that despite this, whatever we get in 2019 or whenever it comes out is a good game. We have no way of knowing at this point. We don't even know what kind of game it is.
No, well, we know. I think it was like, you know, sort of third person, sort of behind kind of thing. I mean, obviously, Respawn are working on another Star Wars game. Now the only thing for me now is like, well, if that was a 2019 release, we don't know when Respawn's was coming. That we don't know. We know nothing about that. That could have been 2021. Now it means if that's the case, Battlefront might have to hold the fort up for another year. So maybe they'll have to start doing some more work on that. This also brings up the other problem of EA having such this like exclusive kind of console video game. This is where I look at the Marvel deals and go, maybe that's what they need to do. Maybe they need to just, because rather than having a shooter and that is all you're going to get for 2 years, the Marvel idea of, we've got a single player, we've got fighting, we've got pinball. I'm looking at the Marvel now going, maybe the exclusive. I don't think once this deal with EA goes, I don't know if they'll get the same one.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't help us now, but if this does result in EA not making whatever targets Disney has set for them because, they didn't release enough games to make it, then yeah, the contract will get renegotiated. Maybe some other companies will get a chance to go in there. Now, granted, from my perspective, if Activision ends up being the ones with the company, we're in the same dang position anyway, because they're just as bad as EA is. But maybe if they can get it to some smaller studios, maybe follow the Warhammer style mantra that Games Workshop is using now, which is, if you want to use the Star Wars license, pay us our fees, meet a certain quality threshold. Granted, that's not part of the Warhammer deal, but I would like to make sure Disney included that in theirs. And we could actually see some really cool games out of that. Now, do I expect it to happen? No, because Disney is never going to give up the full story rights to anybody. Everything is going to have to go through Disney quality control, go through the story group and all that. But we can dream.
Yeah, I personally feel like once EA have done, they will not get the same contract again, because I think they will be looking and going, we can have you make one game every 2 years, or we can have 5 companies making 2 games a year or 3 games a year constantly. Don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with it. But it was kind of the big news that kind of happened before we did this recording. So I felt like it was definitely worth talking about. But we would love to know what you guys think as well of this kind of closure of the studio. I'm not going to try and butcher the name again, but as
Visceral.
I said, Visceral. Yeah. So on that note, you can always hit that subscribe button, like button, or follow button on whichever audio or video platform you are watching or listening this on. Check us out over at DisKingdom. Follow us on all the different social medias. James, where can they find you?
I mean, heroiclegacy.com.
And on that, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you guys soon. Laters. Bye.
Later.